Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for coming to this round table. Independent animation, what are the key factors? Okay, it's not written anymore. The key factors for success on an international scale. I hope you're fine in this, I don't know, 6th, 7th, 100 day of Cannes. So as we saw, after the lockdown and the reopening of cinemas, independent animation rapidly re-engaged the public and attracted substantial audiences into theaters, while also thriving online. So we asked ourselves, I mean ourselves more Ansi than me, but we am their voice, what strategies will sell agencies and distribution companies implement for animation films to be successful in many territories? To answer this question, we asked 2 sales agents and a distributor to come and talk to us about their recent success and give us the opportunity to pick their brain to find the best practices for a successful animation film release. Without further ado, please welcome Solveig Langeland, Managing Director of Soul Media. Edward Noltner, President of Cinema Management Group. And Rodney Euler, Director of Acquisitions and Development at J-Kids. So hi everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Ready?
Spaghetti.
Ready to be to let me pick your brain? Okay. So I propose that we go around the table so you can introduce yourselves and present an example of recent success. And I'm starting with you, Solveig. Can you introduce to us Soul Media first?
Yes, I'm from a company called Sula Media. It's based in Germany. I founded it 19 years ago in 2004. And we very quickly moved into animation and family films. The company was acquired by a bigger group called PlayOn. It's a games company 3 years ago. But we remain independent, and we're still doing the exact same things that we used to do. We're doing family and animation. We really love it. I think it's the greatest films for the greatest audience, for the next generation. I don't think that we could find any more important audience than them. So we try to find films that are good values, good core values, but still has quite a bit of fun. So those are the films that we are really, really looking for when we are acquiring films. We obviously have the whole world as our market. And the world is, of course, a big space. And of course, we always face different challenges in certain territories, but then other opportunities arise in some territories. So in general, we are able to, in animation, to more or less sell the whole world. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but in general, because animated films don't get old in the same sense that maybe a live action film would, because, you know, if you have a rabbit or if you have a ghost, you know, they're probably going to look the same, you know, in 2 years or 3 years. So very often we can see that we are actually licensing films much later. So for instance, we have a film that was completed in 2018, and our theatrical in China isn't this year in June. So 5 years later, but you know, animation is animation, so you really have a lot of opportunities in that space. Our recent successes has been Rabbit Academy is a German film, and also we call it Moonbound. It's also a German film, but we do work with films from all over Europe, and we've also had some from Latin America. When you look at why we are successful, what do we do? I think it's with animation, you know, the film business, you know, it's very big, but animation family is a little bit, animation business is a little bit like a family. So you don't have that many distributors, but you have very specialized distributors that are doing animation. So I think the key to success is really to find the right one of those partners that you have, but also to have plenty of time to plan the release. You cannot rush an animated film. You cannot just take delivery and then release it 3 weeks later. You really need a lot of time. So I think that for our film with the rabbits, yeah, it was perfect to release it for Easter. So if you didn't release it for Easter one year, you waited a year, and of course, then you have plenty of time to look at what other companies were doing and to kind of copy that success. I think for us, it's really, really important to have great marketing material. It's almost as important as the film. Have a great poster, have a great trailer. And I sometimes feel that especially independent European producers are not always that focused on creating this type of materials. I think other territories are a little bit better doing that. Our other film, Moonbound, was not really a Christmas film, but it was positioned a little bit like a Christmas film. So you have to look a little bit in your space, what you have, when you have to coordinate your releases a little bit around the majors. You don't want to release your film right around the Disney, Pixar, Sony, or whatever film. You want to try to have at least 2 weeks alone in the box office, or maybe with another independent film. So I think timing is extremely important if you're going to be successful. Another thing that's important is, of course, to have a portion of luck. And it's very difficult to book that, but luck has a little bit to do with it. I don't know if that's a little bit too wishy-washy. I guess it is. But for instance, in Europe, if you suddenly have a sunny weekend, a lot of people are not going to go to the movie theaters. And I think, for instance, in France, the films that opened last weekend or this weekend probably did great because of all the rain we've had. So there are different parameters that you cannot control, obviously. But I think the key things is really take your time, find good distributors, and have really, really great marketing. And the campaigns that we've done, we are a European company, so we work a lot with Creative Europe Media. So we have a specialist in our office that are coordinating all of this, making sure that our films get quite a bit of support from Creative Europe, which of course takes a little bit away the financial risk that distributors are having when they are releasing theatrically, giving them the opportunity to invest a little bit more. When you are in animation, you're up against the majors. That's very scary, but also a lot of fun if it works, because you can really have great box office. So yeah, I don't know if I should add something.
Yeah, but about Rabbit Academy and Moonbound, how many countries did you sell those movies?
I think that my colleague closed Mongolia last year, and I think that was the last one for the Moonbound. I think for the Rabbit Academy, we may have a couple of territories left, but in general, we tend to sell very, very many territories, because animated films, you can, with the dubbing, you can really localize in a very nice way. You can have good voices, you can have lots of fun material. So it's something that distributors are really willing to take a chance on.
Yeah, and you mentioned a lot of things that we are going to discuss afterwards in a more detailed way with all of you, debating. That would be very interesting. Edward, same exercise. Can you introduce to us Cinema Management Group?
With great pleasure, and thank you very much for the invitation. Annecy, the Marché du Film, it's great to be here and to be surrounded by these esteemed colleagues who have a wonderful track record. Cinema Management Group was created 2003, so 20 years, and our first big feature film was Hoodwinked, the true story of Little Red Riding Hood, which we screened as a work of progress here in Cannes 2004, and I think it turned out to be a pretty darn good movie because it grossed over $110 million worldwide. And from there we just started talking with other producers to bring animated films of intelligent quality. That means taking people on a world travel that you don't necessarily get with live action films. So one of the hallmarks of the films that we like to champion are films that take audiences into another world with lots of fantasy and great visuals. So over the years, we've worked with South Africa in terms of co-producing movies, executive producing movies, movies like Adventures in Zambezia, Kumba, and most recently a SEAL Team, which ended up being sold out around the world. And right now we have movies from Brazil, so that's one of our international productions. We've done 2 movies in Canada, and also movies out of Latin America with Peru, and doing those as European co-productions. So in terms of what makes an animated film successful, it's like Solveig said, great marketing materials, and in our company we've developed little booklets for the distributors to go through everything from print advertising to social media, and outdoor campaigns, and just taking the whole gamut of marketing opportunities. Like Solveig said, hiring a really good trailer company is hugely important, but it's also expensive, and I think it's money well spent. The same thing with poster artwork. And then on our most recent movie, Einbo, which we did well even despite the, what is it called, the COVID handicap. We hired a marketing company out of Argentina because we wanted to make sure that this movie, which was originally Peruvian and talked about the Amazon rainforest, that we had an insight into the Latin American market. So we hired this company, and they came up with this concept for us, which was, think locally but act globally. And that was their key strategy, was to come up with internet advertising and social media campaign that would appeal to a Latin American audience, but then also that we could adapt for the European market. And that included GIFs and press releases and all kinds of things that we were able to come up with to get Einbo out there. And in the end, even despite the pandemic, it did $13 million box office. I think we also took a page from Loving Vincent, which was a film that I was very honored to be associated with as the foreign sales agent and executive producer, because the producers behind the film, Hugh Welshman and Sean Bobbitt, really had a handle on getting the word out on this film, and they had a Kickstarter campaign which went viral, and I think got $43 million views. And was just a huge tool to set up the awareness of the film around the world. Then while they were making the film, they had television crews that came to the studio, and first it was a Polish crew, then it was an Italian crew, then it was an American crew, and we ended up being a 3-minute segment on NBC Nightly News in the United States, which ended up helping us make the $8 million box office that we ended up doing in the United States. So in short, you've got to be continuously resourceful, you've got to be continuously working with the right people, spend the money in marketing, and like Solveig says, with a little bit of luck, you can end up making some money and some overages if you're working with the right distributors. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. So, Rodney, I don't think I even have to tell you what to do anymore. Yep. So yeah, but I'm going to anyway. So can you introduce to us J-Kids?
Sure, and thank you for having me here at Annecy and Marché du Film. Selfishly, I was hoping no one would show up, but thank you all for being here as well. So G-Kids is celebrating our 15th anniversary this year. So it was originally founded, hence the name, focusing on family entertainment. Pretty quickly, it steered into strictly animation, and it did that because we saw absence of distributors focused in that space in North America. And so now we release primarily animated feature films, international, but not primarily for kids. So we span all age ranges, and the name sticks, but our audience is very much family, adults, teens. I'd say the majority is teens and young adults. We release about 6 to 10 new features a year. We also just surpassed 100 films in our catalog, which, depending on who you are, is a lot or a little. And then we've also, since the company founded, we had an early relationship with Studio Ghibli, first handling their non-theatrical rights, and now we handle all rights for their catalog in North America. And so when we look at films, we're primarily looking at them for North American territory. We're looking at all rights, so we handle theatrical, we handle digital, we handle the physical videogram. And we're also, you know, I hope what we can bring to the films that we take on as a point of view as a distributor, and that's kind of what we look for in films as well. So we don't really have a statement every year of we have to acquire this many films and they have to speak to this specific market, which, you know, whether it's a good or bad business plan, it's how we operate. And so we just take on films that we feel we can be additive to. We tend to focus on 2D animation. We tend to focus on international films, so we handle very few American or North American films. One film that I can talk about briefly, and in the spirit of being in Europe, was a Spanish film called Unicorn Wars, or sorry, Spanish-French co-production. This is by a filmmaker, Alberto Vasquez, who we handled his first feature, which is Psiconatas. And it's a very interesting example for us because it's not traditionally a model we've used before, but it worked to a lot of success with this film. And so when we took this film on, we were really excited to view it as sort of an animated genre film. And how do you release a genre film, which in the US are quite successful recently and have a very dedicated audience? And so for us, it was an experiment in doing something new. And so our approach was to really get that audience and try to make the market view the film in that way, and an animated film perhaps secondly. And so we partnered with one specific theatrical chain in the US called Draft House. And they have their own very specific audience that we felt lined up with them. So they did exclusive previews in about 15 to 20 markets. And then on the heels of that, we released it online for digital transactional sales. And I think the word of mouth that we generated through the previews set up for significant success online. So the film has started really strongly online, and if you start strongly online, you can sustain yourself for much longer. So it's really found its audience there, which is not traditionally where we look for first. We traditionally give longer theatrical runs and roll it out quite traditionally, but the film has really found its place there, and we're listening to the audience as well. So after we released it, we check and see what everyone's saying and sort of pick up on what is strongest with how it's impacting the audience and kind of amplify that message as well. So it's continuing in week, I don't know, 8 or so online to be quite successful.
Yeah, and just to tell people if you don't know, Unicorn Wars, it's a genre animated movie, a war between teddy bears and unicorn, and it's not kind at all.
It was a real lesson in making sure that people knew we weren't a kids distributor as well. Because
yeah, how do you do that? Because especially online as well, that people can mistake. It's the animation itself is like cute teddy bears, but they are doing horrible stuff. So how do you make sure that you get the message through that it's not for kids at all?
Right, and we handle all the production materials in-house as well. So the team that's acquiring the film is also speaking to the marketing materials, and that whole conversation is internal and holistic. And so if you look, I wish I had examples here, but our messaging was quite direct and tongue-in-cheek in that, which I think fit the tone of the film, which Alberto has an amazing sense of humor as well, and obviously the visual dissonance between these cute, cuddly characters who are very graphically killing each other. We felt we had the freedom to sort of play with that, and we would splash the message like, do not take your kids to it, like quite directly on the ads. And I think people got the sign that this was a film that had fun with the topic it's covering, even if it is quite serious. And if they were unclear if it was for kids, we made it pretty explicitly clear.
So thank you also. Now we're going to discuss a little bit further, so how to get the best practices to make a movie a success. But first, do you know when you buy or when you distribute a movie that is going to be a success?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
No,
you can know.
I think sometimes the IP and the zeitgeist really will determine, and we can tell within the first market if a movie's going to be a hit. We had this movie Einbo, like we talked about, sold I think 10, 15 territories in the first 2 markets. Then we had the basically sequel to that called Kayara, and I think we're up to 21 pre-sales on that one, and that's already a really good indication as to whether or not distributors are really responding to the IP. So that's one measure.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that selling animation or buying animation at a business-to-business level is a little bit like falling in love. You know within like 5 seconds if you like the material or not. You don't really have to look and look and look. Either you like it and you really want to have it, or you say, oh, it's not for me, and of course it could then be later. So I think we know very, very quickly, very first market, we know if it's going to be a success. So that's easier for the sales agent. For the distributors, again, you know, they're going to know if they have a success maybe a year or two later in animation. And then, of course, a lot of things, parameters can change, like, for instance, COVID or, you know, whatever. But for us, in sales, we know it very, very quickly.
And the visual aspect of it, very important to us.
And for us, I think one question that we ask the licensor or the filmmakers or the studio when we buy a film is kind of like, what is success for you? So I think for us, understanding the intentions that they are hoping to get out of a release is very helpful for understanding if we can help them achieve that. So if they define success as raising their profile in the US, if they define success as financial, which obviously everyone's interested in, if they define success as an awards or festival attention, that's kind of how we start viewing a film. If we can make it successful, is understanding how they define success. I think the other question that we ask ourselves when we look at films internally is, who is the audience for this film? And so it speaks to what you guys have said as well, but we're not necessarily saying, like, is it for adults 25 to 40? We're trying to think of a portrait of the audience, because then that makes our role a lot easier if we can understand or picture who might want to see this, whether it's in theaters or digital or owning a physical copy. So those are the kind of the questions we ask to help figure out what success means.
And you've had a lot of success, particularly with the Oscar nominations. How many Oscar nominations have you had?
We've had 12 over the 15 years.
Nothing. It's just
12.
Just 12.
No, I also think that the target audience is very, very important. Who are you making this film for? And stay really true to this target audience. If you're going to be in preschool, make it for preschool. If you're going up to 8, make it for them. If you're going up to 10 or 12, you know, focus, really know who you're making your story to. Make sure that the visuals fits the story, and make sure that your target audience will understand, and the parents, so that we don't need a warning for our films. We really want not only the buyers, but also the families to know exactly who this film is for.
And I think there's been a little bit of a shift over the years. You know, scenes that could be 15 years ago perfectly acceptable in a family movie, I think today distributors say, oh, it's too dark, can you do something about that? Because there's a real concern from distributors about kids being not traumatized, but being, in French you say heurté, how do you say that in English? To be shocked or to get scared and leave the theater with their parents, and the parents want their money back. So I think in today's marketplace, we have to be really careful with every family film, and things that might a few years ago have been acceptable are no longer.
And what are your criteria to choose a movie to sell or to distribute when there is a lot of offers? So how do you say, oh, this one, I'm going on it because I trust, I'm fully confident in it?
To me, it would be the visuals and the story. If you have a good story, you're going to find an audience. Obviously, the visual has to appeal also to the target audience. But with those two, we would come on board.
For us, it's sometimes the filmmakers. What's their track record? Right now, we're working with one of the most successful independent animation studios in Europe on their 5th film. I think their movies have grossed over $150 million, the first 4. And we love the sensibility of those films. We love how they tell a story, and the visuals are amazing. So those are some of the criteria. I've bought movies or been really interested just based on one still. of a film, and I say, that's the look I'm looking for, you know, and then meet the producers, develop the screenplay. We also get involved in developing screenplays. We've done that on 3 movies as executive producer, and so it's starting a process and then seeing it all the way through to the end of delivery, and that's what I think attracts us.
Yeah, I have the romantic answer is, do we love the film, as you guys have said, or are we really taken with this story? There's a practical answer as well, as can we take this on? Can we bring something additive to it? And those sometimes go compete with each other because we're still quite a small team. But yeah, if there's a clear point of view, I think with the film that is really attractive to us and helps us answer that question of who the audience is. And then we love building a filmmaker career or supporting through multiple titles, as you guys have spoken to too. So we take mostly original IP, and so if we know the filmmaker or the studio or the people involved, then it helps us understand what the end result will be, even if we don't have the final film yet.
And I turn to the sales agent. Do you think that animated films travel better than live action movies? It's easier to sell?
In the independent space, yes, I would say definitely. Normally, for the animated films, we will sell most of the world, and we do live action family. Obviously, we don't always have English language, and that is a little bit more challenging. So I would say that animation is easier because you can localize it in a different way. You don't have famous actors in one country and you may not know them in a different country. And when you localize it, you can use famous actors and kind of use their name and liking on the posters. So I think that you can do very, very much more marketing and try to make it more local than you could with a live action film.
I think it's also a question of the offer and demand. 15 years ago, independent animated films were sort of an anomaly, and we were very lucky to be in that space very early on and to build a reputation and to start working with distributors that saw the opportunity to compete with the majors. It wasn't easy for them initially to find the release dates and start putting the kind of money that you need. I've heard so many times distributors say, oh, it's so expensive, you have to do all the dubbing, and if there's songs and whatnot. And I said, you have a wonderful opportunity here. You know, if you go out in spring vacation and there isn't a major studio release, you can get that whole audience. And so animation has been something that distributors have recognized as being a real asset to their lineup. And if they bought 2 movies or 3 movies, 4 movies, today it's a little bit more challenging for us as sales agents because so many people have gotten on the bandwagon. And so when Solveig and I were the first stalwarts of independent animation, you know, now we have probably 15 companies selling, and if not more, independent animated films. And I wish them all luck, you know.
And independent movies, obviously, they don't have the same marketing budget than like a Pixar or the big major companies' movies. So which part takes how much you spend on marketing? In percentage, maybe. Is marketing essential? Of course it is, but still,
of course, yes.
For
I think it's always a fine line between how much you spend and how much you're going to be making with the film. And I've had wonderful distributors who have overspent on marketing, and those who have spent less and end up sending us overages. So you know, it's luck. The release date, it's their whole campaign. You know, some distributors really like to be digital in terms of their approach, and then there are some that do an amazing job with outdoor advertising, and that drives it. Every country is a little bit different, so that's why when we do our marketing campaigns, we give them a whole slew of marketing materials and ideas so that they can use that within their marketplace as they see best.
I also think that animated film has been able to profit from the digitalization. You know, 10 years ago, we marketed very, very differently. We actually bought TV spots. Today, you do everything online, and you can make with animated film so many nice marketing assets, happy Mother's Day, happy whatever, and you can really push that out, and it's really your own creativity that's the limit to that, because these things are not expensive in comparison to how it was to market a film 10 years ago. So I think that animated film has really profited from the new way of marketing by social media and digitally.
Yeah, and I would say similar things from the distribution side. A vast majority of our marketing and advertising is digital, and a vast majority of that is also social media. And we look at our campaigns twice a week to adjust them. So it's kind of a constant pulling of levers or trying something new or replacing or adjusting. So the way you can in real time sort of look at what's being successful and what is reaching people is really helpful for us. We've grown a lot in our anime business, and I think part of that speaks to the market in North America, but part of that also speaks to that audience, at least in North America, is extremely online, extremely passionate about the films and the creators and the filmmakers that are making these films, and so they only help what we do in that they are also really passionate marketing audience members themselves, so they can really help amplify the message of the film. If they see it or hear about it, they can also like take that message and run with it.
So social medias are totally part of their communication plan, really. Do you have an example of something you did online on social media, maybe that went viral or worked very well?
Well, like I said, with Loving Vincent, it was the Kickstarter campaign, and then all of the short clips that we released over a period of time. We had to be careful not to release too many of them, but they were just getting so much traction. And then we love with our more comedic animated films to do GIFs and to get those out on social media. So on Ainbo, we did a whole slew of them, and distributors really loved that. And so, the digital campaigns are hugely important today.
Yeah, we did some TikTok dancing, and I don't know how many people actually did the dancing, but it was a great gimmick, and it was just something to market, an additional tool, creating enthusiasm. And sometimes you just want to create enthusiasm and that people know about it, like it, and we did the same thing. We create very short little clips, and that's wonderful to do in animation. You can do 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds. It's not a problem, and that's what's so wonderful about animation. You can make such great and creative marketing, and you can really, through the social media, push it directly to your viewers. So we think that it's extremely important to be on the social media and digitally.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the similar things, I think I'll add to that by saying that's when we get really excited about visuals for a film. We also try to picture how they'll look still as well, because no one makes an animated film thinking about how it looks when it's not moving. But we still have to think about that, because a lot of ads or marketing is still images. So that can also be hugely impactful in terms of how we market a film. If the visuals don't translate in a still way, that can be detrimental. It's not, it won't ruin a film or a campaign, but it's just something we think about. So a majority of our ads are moving, but you can't not have still images when you advertise an animated film.
And you talked about social medias, but what's your, are you still about traditional methods like posters, trailers, even press?
Music videos.
Yeah, what's your relationship to those traditional methods and not always social medias?
Well, obviously, a poster, great key art is key. It is really the first contact that when we do business to business, but also business to customers, that's the first thing you're going to see. So you really need to have a nice poster. And the traditional trailer, it is still extremely important. Press, obviously, for us, because we do B2B, we will do some press here, but it will not be pushed from us into the territories. That is something that the distributors will do. But obviously, it is important to get nice press, because quite a few parents are reading and checking online or in the papers if the film is is of a certain quality, or want to just read reviews. But that is not really our job. That is not really something that we do at Sola.
And since we have the pleasure of working on films that are in production for 4 years, we get to cut a number of trailers. We try to update a promo reel trailer at every market. And so when we see, okay, this is working, and so we'll try and build out that area in terms of the trailer. And so that influences what the final trailer will look like. Getting feedback from distributors, market after market, is very helpful for us. We oftentimes actually, when we have a campaign that we're thinking of investing, we'll call up and send the campaign to the distributors and say, which one of these campaigns do you like the most, and get their feedback. So we're trying, to anticipate probably 12 months in advance of the film's delivery, how the marketing campaign is going to work and look.
Yeah, and we're in a slightly different scenario, but facing similar issues. So we invest heavily in PR. So we have 2 national agencies that we work. They get more expensive every year. But that's really important for our storytelling aspect of releasing the film, because we want to make sure the audience knows, and there's just such an influx of films and such an influx of animated films that it's harder and harder to rise above. And so if PR can be a huge asset for that. We also, a theatrical award, or like an awards campaign, is entirely different. So the materials and the tools they use for that is very different than what you use for a theatrical release or a digital release. But they all kind of play together. So the more tools you have at your disposal, the better. I also think now that we're in sort of a new transition of theater going, in theater marketing support is hugely important to us, because you're already answered the question of how do you reach people in theaters by showing it to the people who are already there. So trailering and teaser clips that play in the release prior to the one that's coming up is a big tool that we use, and getting it into the larger theatrical chains. That's a huge asset that it can often go unnoticed because you aren't seeing it online and you don't have the metrics of view counts, but it's hugely impactful for getting the message out in a meaningful way.
And what do you say, to different type of sales agents, what do you say to distributors to say, okay, you have to be interested in independent animation, it's good, it will be good for you? How do you motivate them? Do you say, oh, it will be something, you won't regret to go into independent animation movies?
Well, as I said, animation, we're a family. We all know each other. It's a very nice group of people. We also have the most important audience as our audience, to my opinion. It's the kids. And in independent space, how are you going to have kids watch art house if you don't invest in kids, when they're young? Do we think that, if they're only watching Pixar, that they're going to go and see art house when they're 25? Probably not. So I think that we have an important job to do also, to make sure that we do tell our stories, and that we do have our values and our way of storytelling, and bring that to kids, or families. So I think that find a good story, find something that moves your heart, find a great hero, and be creative. It is, of course, always a hero's journey in a kids' film. It normally always has a happy ending, which is very nice to watch, especially today. So I would be courageous. I would look at the story, look at myths, look at the stories that move you, and then try to find some good people to do designs. And I think Ed and I, we get involved very early, because this is the road that we want to take, and this is the journey that we want to take. And I think I've been involved with the film for like 7 years. I'm sure it's the same for Ed. Be creative and find the nice stories, and let's make sure we make something nice for the next generation.
And I think distributors are looking for something that they can get behind emotionally, and bring to their audiences in their language. you know, the independent animated field has been pretty successful recently, be it more mature audience animation or four-quadrant, you know, family movies. There are a lot of examples of box office successes, so that helps us a lot.
Yeah, and same question for you as a distributor. How do you motivate the audience and say, oh, you should watch not only Pixar, but my movie, my independent animated movie?
We're kind of trying to make that same case for theater owners or retailers, and it's a hard case to make for a lot of people because the bias of animation is very real in the industry, and so they view it as big studio kids films or nothing at all. And so it's a constant education, even 15 years in. But to be honest, the theater owners are movie lovers themselves. So a lot of the effort is if the film is great, and if they connect with it, then they'll typically find a place for it. That obviously means different things to different people. But if you have a film that's moving or gets people excited, then our job is certainly easier. And then we just have to make sure that the right people see it. But that's the biggest impact of if the film connects with people, they'll find a place for it.
And Rodney, you almost answered it, but I'm asking to you three, when an independent animated movie is a success, when do you think it did well?
When it did well, when it does
enough
box office for our distributors to send us overages. That's when it does well. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of successes over the years.
Yeah, we're also, you know, we're not really into the award-winning films. We try to pick one or two that we think could be in that area every 3 or 4 or 5 years, but in general we're also in the commercial part. So when the distributors are successful, we are very, very happy because we are building the market here a little bit, and it's been a very successful market. And we just see in France used to be difficult for independent animation only 5-6 years ago. If it wasn't French or it wasn't American, it was difficult, and now it's been turned into be a great country for us. And the same with Germany. Germany's also used to be, you know, people wanted to see Pixar, they wanted to see own German brands, but it's changing. So I think that people are opening up for independent European or worldwide animation, and I think that's very promising.
And let's not forget stop motion. You know, My Life as a Zucchini, what a wonderful success that was.
Yeah, I think to add to what I've said before, I think one of the things that's most rewarding, and obviously overages are very rewarding as well, but one of the things that I think on our side, if it's very rewarding, is if we see the filmmaker have a new project in development. If we had a first film with them or an early career film with them, and then they, after our release or the release of their first film, if they have a new film or the studio that they're working in grows, then that to me it means that we did something right or they found success in some way. So that's why we love to build a catalog of one director or one studio. It's because that's a clear sign that obviously they're finding success even beyond North America, but hopefully that North America is contributing to that, whether it's raising that profile or the money has helped build them a new production. So that is another sign that success has been achieved for us.
And we have just a few minutes left, so maybe take this time to, you are on the market, in the market right now. You have, I think, all of you movies here in Cannes in the market. So do you want to tell people why they should go to your stand, to you, and to see your movies? What is the next success you have?
I'm sorry, what?
What is your next success? Next success.
I think our next success is going to be Rufus, about the sea monster that cannot swim. It's a very, very nice story, obviously a hero's journey. And we're going to present it at the AFM, but we are starting a little bit at this market. So yeah, that's going to be our next film.
I think if you come to CMG, you're going to be able to travel around the world with our movies. There's comedies, there's more adult themed movies as well. I think our movie Kayara has just set a record here at the market for us in terms of 21 pre-sales. So we're extremely happy about that. It's much more than even Loving Vincent in terms of pre-sales. Yeah, we're excited about our lineup. We have 3 more films coming out next year, and then we have to worry about the next ones.
Yeah.
And what is the next movie that will be,
Yeah.
Nominated for an Oscar?
Unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that. If I did, maybe I wouldn't have to use our PR team as much. But we don't have a stand. I'm running around to the stands, but I would say see the animation that's here. Tell the people they're excited about animation so that we can have more of it here. If you're in North America, go see the first Slam Dunk in July. That is our next release. And look out for Ernest and Celestine, Trip to Jabrishia. That is our next European release, I believe. But yeah, follow G-Kids, I guess is what my social team will be very happy to hear me say. But yeah, if supporting animation is a win for, I think, any of us here. So you're already doing that, but I think if we can spread that word, then everyone will sort of benefit from it.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we're going to see each other in Annecy. So yeah, thank you very much for participating, and thank you very much for being there.
Thank you.
Thank you.